All right, live once again. And in this live stream, I just want to show you a really simple exercise that you can do really anytime in your place. And it will really help release stress and tension and also help lubricate the joints and help create more space and help create, you know, more mobility and more lubrication within the joint. Because basically the joints, if they don't move, they don't really move through their range of motion, then the synovial fluid and the membrane inside of the joint can really get stuck. And for a lot of people, this is a big problem, especially in modern times where we are desk jockeys and we're working at computers, creates a lot of stagnation and tension in the wrist and the hands, neck and shoulders. And then especially if we're on our phones doing this, it just really creates a lot of compaction and starts to create nerve impingement and fluid stagnation, which of course leads to really not feeling very good at the end of the day. So I just want to say as a caveat from the beginning, what I'm what I'll show you, it's not anything other than exactly what it is. Meaning, I've seen people show this stuff and be like, "Oh, it's ancient Tai Chi exercise," or "Oh, it's spiritual," or "Oh, it's Neigong," or "Oh, it's Qigong," or "Oh, it's fill in the blank internal art thingy." And it's not. It's literally it's literally just what it is. Um, Maybe some of these things might have incorporated it for the benefits that it has, but it's just an exercise. And I just really want to clarify that, really emphasize that point, really make that point explicit and clear and redundantly obvious so that people really don't get the wrong idea or don't get the wrong expectations. Um, and this is, I would say, perhaps another learning opportunity where people can see how a lot of systems go off the rails or just stay stuck in really mundane, really low level things. Because what I'm going to show you can produce sensations, right? It can produce tingling, it can produce heat, it can produce blood flow, it can produce all these things. And I see people experience those things and be like, oh my God, it's chi, it's magic. I'm doing internal arts. And it's like, no, it's just your nerves felt something and they were stimulated, or your blood did something, which is great. It's wonderful. It's great for your health, but it has nothing to do with the internal arts and whatever. So, first point. Second point is that um, it's this is part of what some of this kind of things that I'm going to put in the course that I'm working on. There's going to be kind of foundational basic health exercises, then leading into things that would actually be considered moving towards internal. And part of what I've been thinking and part of what I've been doing is taking out some of the little pieces and some of the little threads and some of the little rice grains that happen to occur as byproducts or as side effects of various internal things, and kind of extrapolate them out and share them with people and put them in a way that people who don't really want to go down that rabbit hole can still get benefit and can still take little bits and pieces and use it to improve their health or change different scenarios. So, with those two important caveats and those two important context pieces in place, I'll start and show you the whole point of me going on today. So, I'll have to kind of move the mic a little bit so I don't slam into it. And the angles might get a little bit weird, but really simple thing, joint rotations. So the idea here is that you want to put or get your awareness inside the joint and then basically have that joint move in a circle. So as you know, as you may or may not tell, I'm not just doing this. This is just me circling my joint, like making circles with it. Versus if I do a circle with the joint and the center of the joint itself is kind of moving in a circle, which happens to be going in the same way as my hands. So basically, really simple movement, just start. So just follow me through this process. First is just show the actual movement, the stupid, ridiculous, dumb looking movement. And then once that is comfortable and established, then I will layer in more pieces, layer in more explanation, layer in more ways that it can be done. But first, we have to lay down the foundation, lay down the stupid container of the ridiculous, silly movement, this is a really dumb, stupid, silly movement. But the idea is awareness in the actual space of the wrist and the fingers, and create a light stretch. So there's a little bit of space created in those joints, and then basically just circle it. So that's first. This is the first stage, right? So as you can see, my wrist is circling, but also my wrist is going in a circle. So if I just do the wrist in a circle, this is also happening, meaning this is going in a circle and it's rotating. So it's a joint rotation and a circle. You need to have both. If you just do this is just, it's also a stupid, silly movement, but it'll be less effective. So now once the wrist and the hand are doing that, now I'm going to do the same thing with the elbow. So elbow is circling. So if you don't know, I'm basically just doing this. It's not really a complicated movement. But at least for me, it's pin your spine in space so you're not doing this. Just as an aside, make sure your spine stays somewhat solid. It'll move a little bit. At least for me, because whenever I do this, because of all the internal connection that I've been building, when I move my wrist, my abdomen goes, it starts rolling over, and a bunch of stuff starts twisting and moving around. But don't copy what's happening for me, because I can't. It's hard for me to turn it off because of the connections. And actually, whenever I do this, my legs are also stretching. It goes all the way down to my feet. So let me try to not do that. Okay, so wrist, hand, elbow, going in a circle. And then now, same thing with the shoulder joint, going to be going in a circle. So it's literally just putting all three together. So wrist, elbow, shoulder, all rotating and going in a circle within the space of the joint capsule. So that might, even just that as a coordination exercise, might cause some challenges for people. So just, this is the wrist, and then now this is just the elbow. The elbow is just basically going in a circle. And then the same thing, my shoulder, this shoulder joint is literally just going in a circle. That's all it's doing. And then scapula, the last joint in this chain, my scapulas are also going in a circle. So from the side, sorry, the mic is in the way. I'm just demoing this off the cuff for free on YouTube. So don't expect super amazing production quality. Obviously the course will be better. But same thing, you can see my scapula also rotating. So every single joint in this chain is rotating and going in a circle. And then I'll go the other way. So same thing, just going towards the inside. Everything is going in a circle. And I tend to do this kind of every day whenever I train, just to kind of warm up and lubricate and wake up all these joints. Also, if you're working at a desk a lot, you can basically just do the same thing. So again, to recap, my wrist is circling and rotating. It's rotating and going in a circle, meaning a circle, and it's rotating. So it's not just doing this. This is even stupider and very less effective, but this is what you see people do, versus it's rotating and going in a circle, but I have a light stretch so that there's space, creating a little bit of space. I'm not just which is just creating, so you want a little bit of stretch and a little bit of space. So yeah, that's the circle, right? So again, wrist, hand, elbow, shoulder, shoulder, and then scapulas. Scapulas are also rotating and going in a circle. And do the best you can to keep your spine stable and just let these joints move alone. So you're not doing whatever that is. You're basically just staying stable to whatever degree you can. So yeah, that's the basic, simple, stupid movement. So just to get that simple, stupid movement, familiar, because for some people that might even be a challenge to coordinate all of those joints rotating and moving um, in space. And again, it's not just circling the joint; it's circling it and rotating and creating actual circle of the joint moving in space. So even just doing that for like a couple minutes, you should probably notice this whole line feels more loose and lubricated because you actually lubricated your joints because you moved them. Um, so that's the kind of way you would do it if you just wanted to, again, move your joints, which I recommend as a starting place, especially if you're doing a lot of desk work and these areas will get crunchy. That's the first step. So now that we have that, we can take it a little bit further. So the idea to understand is that our nervous systems tend to have a certain quality to them. And for doing a lot of computer work, for using our phones, we're using social media, quality of our nervous system is usually like just as a visual demonstration because it's like clicking this, doing this, clicking this, doing this, doing this, doing it, just like all over the place. So every that starts to put that pattern back into the nervous system, which over time causes it to go um, which will have two effects. If we're really sensitive, that will tend to create anxiety and stress, and we feel kind of like, "Ugh," or we'll go the other direction and just kind of get numb and dull and lethargic and kind of just like, oh, I don't have any energy. I don't want to do anything. My brain is just mashed potatoes. Life is boring. Life is dull. Nah. In actuality, a lot of people live between these two extremes. And that's just, again, the quality of their nervous system based on the input. And then you can see it in the way people move. Their moves become jerky, or their movement patterns become jerky. Their speech patterns become jerky, really, because that's reflecting the quality of their nervous system. So, what we can do is go back to the same exercise and we can just simplify it down and simplify it back to just the wrist and the hand, just to keep it really simple. And this will start to be more of an awareness exercise. So, as we started, we were just kind of absent-mindedly just doing this, right? Not really just kind of going through the motions. In actuality, this is how a lot of people live their lives, just going to the motions. And honestly, the vast majority of the time when you see people doing Tai Chi and internal arts, it's basically this same sort of like skeleton, silly kind of movement pattern, which is fine. That's where we all start. Um, but now let's take it maybe take a different quality to it. So same movement, but then what I'm going to do is have the basically have the awareness or the intent or the desire to slow down the movement a lot and basically maintain the same pace, the same cadence, the same rhythm, the same speed, the same intensity. Basically, just have a consistent, even, smooth pattern of movement throughout the entire range. And then when I want to change, same thing. And what you'll notice is there'll probably be points where you'll feel glitches or it'll go like it'll spaz out or you'll have glitches or you'll feel things like kind of grab or it will just be extremely challenging to move that slowly and maintain like an even sort of pattern. It's a little bit difficult for me just because I'm talking and trying to figure out how to explain it because I haven't really explained it before. Um, but even just doing it this slow, I can already feel my nervous system kind of being like, all right, yeah, okay, this is a different rhythm. So, I mean, it's the same thing. You can basically go back to the bigger pattern of movement we were just doing with all the joints of like the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder. And that gets a lot harder because now you're trying to um, coordinate a lot of other fine motor things across a much larger chain. So if it's challenging or difficult, just stay with the hands or the wrist. And just doing that can sometimes start to really have an effect. And the idea, and it could literally be any movement. You could even just do the same thing with your shoulder blade. Just move your shoulder blade up and down, left and right, side to side, but using that same. Basically, it's like the key that is what the key to making it work or have an effect isn't the movement, because you could apply it to really most of anything. It's basically the rhythm and the pattern and the cadence that you want to be able to get. Have it be like smooth, even, continuous, with no breaks, no skips, no jumps, no glitches, no tension, no grabbing, no force, no stress, just basically like getting that rhythm going. And it could, again, be fucking really any movement. I just do this one because it is nice for the joint rotation. And then eventually, if you, or depending on where you are sensitivity wise, you'll feel the nerves go all the way up into your neck. And the way nerves feel is different than the way bones feel, is different than the way muscles feel, is different the way blood feels. The nerves have their own quality. And if you've ever hit your funny bone, that's kind of like a really, really extreme version of it. Or if you've ever had nerve pain, then you kind of know what nerves feel like. It can be a dull ache or kind of like a cold burning sort of sensation that's like slightly electrical in the way it feels. But the thing is, if you can use that, whatever simple, stupid movement to start to build awareness of like, oh, that's how my nerves actually feel. Like for me, when I do it, I feel like it kind of goes to a certain point. Um, I don't know what the actual anatomical name is, but it's like right at this, it's like certain points on my neck where I feel it kind of grab a little bit and then goes into, I think, my stomach. Um, but it'll be a little different for everyone. And the more you get the whole chain of things moving, meaning hands, wrist, elbows, shoulders, scapulas, then that will have a different quality. But again, the movement is secondary. I could do the same thing just with my scapulas, which is what's happening right now. I'm just going through really slow rotations with my scapula, but the fact is, it's the rhythm. And just even from doing that, I'm like, okay, I feel more relaxed because I've been like working on the computer for 3 hours straight. Been up since 5 a.m. and I had a latte. So it's like I would normally have the recipe for my nervous system being like, "Zzz," like feeling buzzed. Um, so that's basically it. To recap, number one, it has literally, it's not Tai Chi, it's not Qigong, it's not internal arts, it's nothing to do with those things. It's just a simple, stupid exercise to first, at the first level, just lubricate and move your joints through a range of motion. You can do the same thing with your legs, obviously not to the same degree, but because your knees, your knees don't move in the same way as your wrists, at least they shouldn't. So please don't try. But your hips and ankles should be able to move in a rotated manner. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's just me personally experimenting and extrapolating out little rice grains of side effects and byproducts that I've observed through various internal training processes and trying to extrapolate them out and share them with people in a way that's just really stupidly simple that can hopefully help and allow people to release stress and tension and also start to develop a more of a tangible awareness of their nerves and their nervous system to be able to know, to be able to know what's occurring and to be able to know. um, well, the thing is, like, you can't hit a target you can't see, and if you have no awareness of it, you can't really do anything about it, because you can do things with your fingers and your hands, hopefully, because you have awareness. But the same thing is you can feel, um, you can develop a similar level of awareness with your nerves and your nervous system. So, at least for me, that's interesting and appealing because if I can interface with my nervous system directly and relax it and release it or tell it to not stress out, then that sounds useful and beneficial. Um, so yeah, each tissue layer and each layer in the body has a different feeling quality associated with it. Most people exist not really in their body at all. They are like a little bit on their head, maybe a little bit in their hands, maybe a little bit in their feet, and everything else is just sort of dispersed. And then if they do feel their body, it tends to be just at the skin level at best. That's where people exist, the very like periphery of their experience. And then maybe they feel pain. So like a nerve is stuck or something's like stuck here. And that's mostly the extent of a lot of people's body awareness, which is normal because that's just how we all live. And unless you train it, unless you practice it, then why would you ever develop the capacity of just, it's like saying, I don't know. Yeah, it's just if you never practice it, you never learned it, no one ever told you, then how would you ever know? So yeah, each layer has a different quality. The way the fascia feels has a quality. Like for example, I can move muscles, I could move my ligaments, I could do tendons, I could do nerves. But if I do fascia, it has a different quality. For fascia, however you want to pronounce it, tends to feel more like stretching plastic wrap or something, has a different quality, and I can manipulate the fascia through my body over the bones and whatever, and it has a completely different quality and a different effect. But the process is just you have to do something to contact that system to give your mind like an access point or an entryway to say, oh, that's what this thing is, it's what it feels. And then you can start to kind of like work with it. So especially the whole nerve chain going up into the neck, the shoulders, the wrists, and the hands. That's a really important one, especially if people are doing a lot of computer work. It's one that gets really shut down a lot. But also too, all these nerves eventually feed back into the gut, feed back into the inside of the body, and everything really starts to connect. And then at higher levels, you can move your finger and move your organ or move your whatever. Like at least for me, whenever I do anything with my wrist, like I said, my abdomen and my guts are like rolling over and moving around, and I feel it pressurizing down up and down my legs just because of the way my trained to the inside of my body to communicate and connect. Um, but that has nothing to do with this. This is just number one, simple joint rotations, and then number two, trying to just make the movement pretty much as slow as you can, which you can challenge yourself to like move more slowly, and it will be proportionally more difficult, and you'll feel more of like your nerves glitching, or you'll feel things kind of grab or pull or glitch. And that's where you want to be able to relax and chill out and soften your mind and soften your focus. Because the other thing that tends to happen with the nervous system, when it gets these glitches and when it gets all kind of like computer oriented and phone oriented, is our it's like our quality of our awareness and our subsequent nerves gets very like small and focused, which if you think about it, you're looking at something on a screen that's tiny, right? You're not looking at as a contrast a vast valley, you know. And this is kind of the principle behind it is that in general, our mind and our awareness likes to have big space. If you think about it, rich people tend to have big houses with big tall ceilings and big rooms, and they tend to have big views. Why? Because that is feels better for the mind, um, and we like that. So it's one thing you can do if you notice yourself starting to get stressed and tense, is to expand your awareness and your field of vision out into something much larger than just whatever little text thing we're looking at on the screen. And that's part of the reason why like going for a walk or walking in the woods or walking in nature feels good for people, is it allows their awareness hopefully to kind of spread out and open and not just be so constrained on one little point. So it's something you can definitely do and change. Even if you're outside or you're going for a walk, I do this, and I'll just experiment and play around with what is my field of vision, where is my focus, because as a first step, usually you don't even know what it is. Usually you're just kind of like going through the motions, um, or you're just kind of like still stuck in your head. So all you're aware of is maybe like what's right in front of your feet, which is, fine. There's a time and a place for that. But if you're trying to chill and maybe help your nervous system a little bit, and obviously you're not in like a really stressful environment, like, New York City at 5:30 or Manhattan at 5 p.m. or whatever, like, then yeah, you can let things spread out and open and get to and start looking at a larger thing and allow your field of vision to expand. That can help as well. But the point of why I mention it is that how that changes a person's intention, meaning their focus. So why I say this is because if you have this really sharp, strong focus and you put that inside your body, that will not really be a great thing. Usually it will cause more contraction. Um, so that's where some of the difficulty comes in, is you really have to change the quality of your awareness to start getting any differences in how your body feels. But if you can start doing that, then your body will start mimicking it and mirroring it. And this is just, again, a stupid exercise to illustrate a principle that can maybe be a doorway or a window, at least, into that kind of awareness. But then once you have awareness, then you have the ability to build skill and build familiarity and dexterity, and not just be locked in to wherever you might have been locked in before. So I think that's it. Um, so yeah, that's the exercise, and just something to play around with. And yeah, if you do it, I think someone already said making the movement really slowly really makes my hand glitch, and the asymmetry. Yeah, there you go. And that's just giving you a window into your nervous system. But how you can start to change that is through, again, the even, slow thing. And the speed you can vary, but it's more so like the evenness. Because it's also the same thing with your breath, because your breathing is a reflection of your nervous system. And this is really, if we really simplified it down and talked about one of the most important mechanics of actual breathing, because why I say this is there's all this talk about breathing practices and using it for all these different things. And people were doing Wim Hof, and people were doing, trauma release breathing, and they're doing holotropic breathing, and they're doing, box breathing, and all these different methods of working with the breath. But traditionally, the first fundamental thing, and even realistically speaking, within most of the traditions, there are not actually breathing practices. There's just a process of development that the breath goes through as the internal system changes and develops. So that's one thing that people have mixed up when they're like skin breathing, Dantian breathing, pore breathing, embryonic breathing, reverse breathing, abdominal breathing. Those aren't actually exercises or techniques. It's oftentimes more so the processes by which your system changes and develops. And abdominal breathing is the first thing that everyone needs to develop, myself included. It's just everyone starts. And it's not, again, it's not a quality. I mean, it is a quality. It's not a technique. It's not a practice. So people are like, oh, put your hands on your belly, feel your diaphragm and all these things. Of course, that can help and be useful benefit in like a very short term thing, but it tends to not be permanent. And for a lot of people, it actually just creates more tension in their system, because the breath and the nervous system and the diaphragm are very sensitive. So if you just go in and be like, okay, now we're going to do this, maybe that could be fine if your system's already, pretty healthy and resilient. But if it's already a little bound, it's kind of like if someone treated you the same way. Think about this. Think about a time if you've been stressed or not feeling very good, and someone came up to you and was just like, okay, here's what we're going to do right now. And I don't care if you don't want to do it. I don't care what you feel right now. This is what I'm going to make you do right now because I say so. How are you typically going to respond to that? You're not going to be like, okay, yeah, it sounds awesome. I feel so much better now. So it's the same thing with your nervous system. If you're gonna go into your breath and be like, okay, guys, now we're gonna do this. Your nervous system is probably gonna be like, yeah, I don't know. It might kind of go along with it, be like, okay, I guess if you say so, I'll do it, but I'm gonna resent you for it. So that's kind of why you have to take a different approach. So why I'm saying this is that with the breathing, with what really transforms the nervous system, which what really our people are after is again the slow, even, regular movement. That's pretty much it. And if you look at babies when they're sleeping, it's again, or animals, they have this rhythm, they have this even thing, and that's their nervous system. Whereas when you look at when humans breathe, it's like it's just like it's not really even. Or you have people that are maybe they're even, but it's just all trapped up here. Um, so how that can start to occur is you can come at it from the outside and getting that regular whatever movement, getting that smooth, even, fluid nature to it, what can then create kind of like an external feedback loop to the nervous system and be like, oh, this is a different thing. Okay. And they can kind of get on board, and you might notice that things will kind of chill out and relax. And then that leads to the quality of abdominal breathing. Because if you're in that relaxed state, you abdominally breathe naturally, which means doesn't mean your abdomen necessarily moves around a lot. It just means the breath originates from pretty deep in the body, down in like the low back, kidney, pelvis region, like deep low in the body. The breath will actually come out of there, which again, that kind of taps into the within Chinese medicine, the connection between the kidneys and the lungs, and the lung or the kidneys being able to grasp the lung qi, which is kind of what it's referring to is that the breath is coming from down here. What happens is stress, fight or flight, kidney depletion, whatever kind of like causes this to kind of not be as strong. So it doesn't really grab. So then we don't breathe. And then whatever, it's a whole other different thing, which is not really part of the video. So yeah, that's the exercise. That's the reason why. That's the explanation. And I just encourage you to do it because if you don't do it, it doesn't really yield any benefits. It's pretty much as simple as that. Um, so yeah, play with that and also reflect upon the actual principle and the concept because if you understand the principle and the idea and the guiding mindset more, then the exercises will work more efficiently. And then when you have tangible real experience in your body of what those things are referring to, then that will make the conceptual understanding better, which will then make the practice deeper, and then those things feed off of each other. You can't really have one without the other. I mean, you kind of can, but it tends to work better if you have these two playing off of each other, which kind of ties into something that I talk about a lot, which is being able to actually listen and then being able to actually engage with something in a real way. Like, oh, this is what the actual real process is. Over here, here's what I think. Here's what I'm, assume. Here's what I mentally analyze. Here's the actual experience of it, and then have these things actually feedback from each other and be fluid and open and dynamic and actually alive. And then again, maybe you can treat people in the same way and treat yourself and approach life from that kind of quality as well, rather than just a fixed one thing or the other. This is what I feel, and this is the facts. And it's like, well, actually, over long enough period of time, if you engage with that, you realize what you feel tends to change based on a lot of things. And oh, that's interesting. So, anyways, I'm just rambling at this point, going on different directions. This is the point of the video. Just wanted to illustrate that simple, stupid exercise. So I would just do it and see how it goes. And let me know how you feel about that. Um, a bit off topic. Could you remind me of the discount code for Hyperion Herbs if it's still available? Yeah, just send me an email through the website and I will give you a code. Be the easiest thing. No problem at all. But anyways, hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for all your questions. And yeah, do the exercise. And then let me know your experiences. Let me know your comments. If you have questions, does something make sense? Does something not make sense? Don't really worry about stupid questions because these are things that people worry about. I mean, there are stupid questions, don't get me wrong, but stupid questions tend to be irrelevant questions. If the question's relevant and related to um, the actual practice, then for sure. But what I notice is, as an example, like different workshops that I've been to and teachers that I've studied with, people will ask questions where it's like they didn't even really do the thing. They didn't really engage with the information. They just abstracted off into something that's completely like, well, this teacher said this teacher said that, and this did this, and then when I was 12, I had this, then when I was 14, I had this, then and then I took DMT. And so, what do you think about all that? And it's like, what about the exercise? And then what about the methodology or the conceptual model for the exercise? So, if the questions are related to that, or is anything that's unclear or doesn't make sense or want more explanation on, I'm happy to do it and don't feel like it's a dumb question or it's you're the only one or whatever other reason people have for, you know, not asking questions. Um, because the goal is doing the thing based on understanding it and getting the benefit. That's my goal, and that hopefully should be your goal as well. Um, how do you personally handle situations that typically people get annoyed at? You get $100 driving fine for going to an area you didn't know you had to pay to enter. You drive to the sauna because of a totally illogical rule and it's closed for 3 hours and you just got a little bit of time off to enjoy it, but now you can't. I mean, I would probably be annoyed by that. I mean, uh, I don't know, what can you do? I mean, life presents curveballs for everyone. I don't know if it's part of being human, I think, and feelings are oftentimes feedback. The difference is that, um, yeah, I mean, yeah, emotions and feelings are great and they're fine. It's just when they become habitual and they just start to build up is where the problem is. Where it's like if you experience an annoying event and you're annoyed for 5 or 10 minutes and then you get over it, cool. That just sounds like you're a human being. If you experience an event and you're annoyed about it for days, weeks, months, years, okay, so that's probably going to be a bit problematic. So I think there's a big misunderstanding that people have about internal arts or spiritual training and these things where they think it kind of turns you into a sociopath where nothing bothers you, you don't feel anything, you don't have any emotions, you don't have any feelings, and you're just somehow either high as a kite all the time or you just exist in like a void of nothingness, which people do, but those are actually considered errors. I mean, they do happen from time to time, but as your central reference point as a human being living in the world, that's not really what has ever been purported or recommended by any of the legitimate traditions. Um, because the problem is that a lot of people hear and read things and have ideas of spirituality or internal arts coming from people who are complete renunciates, which is a completely different thing, a completely different approach, a completely different set of teachings and philosophies than someone who lives in the world. But the thing is, people don't know that, and it's all mixed and mashed around. So what happens is people have this expectation that they should somehow be like a sociopath. Nothing should bother me. I should never get upset. I should always feel good. But then even then, I shouldn't really feel good because that's bad too. I shouldn't get upset. I shouldn't get annoyed. I shouldn't feel sad. I shouldn't be whatever. I should just kind of be a sociopath in a way. But even they have feelings, I think, a little bit sometimes. So, but these are the ideas that I've noticed just sit behind people. But it's like that's not like a thing. That's just something someone made up probably in the 60s, because they wanted to disassociate from their emotions and feelings, or probably they wanted to emotionally manipulate other people. So they made feelings and emotions seem like bad things. And then everyone's like, wait, what? This is bad? Okay, tell me more. It's not really ever been the thing. The thing is, if you smooth out your nervous system, which is the stuff of what I've been talking about, then you kind of have a different central point. So if you go to emotional things, you can come back to the center point a lot quicker and easier, which is, I think, useful in terms of being a human being living in the world. So in terms of like, yeah, it's like an orange. Um, you are what comes out when squeezed. It's also sometimes just the quality of the nervous system, which ultimately I think that's just what the emotions are. Ultimately, within Chinese medicine or Chinese philosophy, whatever, there's 5 basic emotions, which I see it as 5 basic flavors of qualities that the nervous system can kind of go through. And there's of course different gradations, but there's basically 5. So that's, yeah. If you get squeezed and that's what comes out, it's just that quality. But again, if you're training even, stable, calm, rhythmic into your nervous system, then that will tend to be what comes out. Or if not, if you get annoyed, which is normal, or you get sad, which is normal, or you get upset or angry or frustrated or worried or happy or whatever it is, then it's a short thing, and then you just go back to center. Because it's another misconception that I think a lot of people have, and I had for many years, is that we should live in some peak state. In actuality, I think most of the time we should live a very boring life, meaning just calm, comfortable, neutral, not really needing much, not really needing to do much, meaning internally. Of course, life, we have to do a lot, whatever, but I'm saying how we actually feel within ourself. But that's all discombobulated and screwed up these days because of a lot of factors. But so people think they have to live in these extreme states. And then what happens is they start beating themselves up. They start flagellating themselves. They become neurotic and think, oh, I'm not in a peak state of whatever. So something's wrong with me. And then it's like, no, 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 no. Or I feel a little bit of an actual normal human feeling. So something's wrong with me. And this just really underlies what really a lot of people do, and how we as humans create a lot of our own suffering and a lot of our own conflict and a lot of our own discomfort. And how, you know, in some ways life is a lot simpler and situations are a lot simpler and people are a lot simpler than we think. It's just hard to see it sometimes, usually when we're stressed or upset. And then let's say if we're living in a chronically stressed, chronically upset, chronically disturbed state, then of course all that simplicity and comfort and clarity is shut off to us. And I just say this because I've said these sentiments to people and they just look at me like I'm a complete idiot or an alien. I remember also, when I was in the therapy world and talking to those people, I would be like, yeah, people are simpler than whatever, and situations are simpler than we think. And they're just like, no, no. I'm like, well, I guess I can see how that would be a challenging idea for you because you spent, $200,000 learning the complexities. But the thing is, if it's that really, obviously things are complex and complicated, but also sometimes they're complex and complicated because we don't have insight or understanding of the actual mechanic involved. Um, At least for me, as I've seen through internal arts, a lot of times the methods are extremely simple, and at some point the methods are just like, do this. How do I do it? Do it. How can you do it? Because you have all the prior pieces in place that enable the conditions for you to be able to do it, which kind of reminds me of someone posted that they did what I showed in a live stream where I was doing like lengthening or whatever, and then they injured themselves. uh, but it's like I could only do that thing as a side product and byproduct of a bunch of other things. So unless you have all of the other things in place, if you just try to do the thing, then it will probably not work or lead to injury. So, anyways, it was already longer than I was anticipating and expecting, as it normally is, but now I'm just rambling. So, anyways, that's the exercise. Thanks for tuning in. And again, let me know your experiences, do the exercise, and I'll be happy to answer questions and follow up more. And I just wanted to share like kind of one little simple thing that I've been playing around with, and I'll include in the course that I'm working on. So, uh, especially these concepts applied to the spine, quite potent as well. Um, which I'm not going to demo that publicly on YouTube because that's a whole other thing. But yeah, these are the ideas and the concepts, and I encourage people to do them. And then, of course, ask questions. And then always keep in mind, here's what I think, here's what that actually means. And realize that these might be two separate things. And then what is my actual experience? So these are three things. And then being able to discern and go between each of the three. Because I'm saying I'm sharing this thing with you, and it means A, B, and C to me. And it produces certain results. So I'm trying to tell you what it means for me because those things are the things that produce the results. And then people, based on their own past experience, their own references, and their human nature and the human variety, are going to take that and filter it through all those things and probably make it mean something different because that's just, we're all playing telephone, right? But realizing that these are different things and different things from the actual outcome that we're trying to create. So have that point of clarity, have that a degree of discernment, and being able to bridge the gap. Um, and that is very useful. And at least for me, that's how I always approach when I learn anything new from a teacher. It's like, okay, here's what I'm hearing from them. Here's the actual words and the actual instructions as they actually said it, meaning almost like a transcription. And then here's kind of what I think that means. And then I keep these things in mind, and then I do the method, and then I'm feeding back to these things. And then as more I do the method, the more I realize, oh, what I thought it was, it isn't, and it's something different. Okay, so that's called learning and correcting errors and moving forward. And then until eventually I reached where like, oh, that's what they meant. Oh, that's what this means. Oh, that's what this is. Okay, now this makes sense. And then still going back, repeating the process. Um, and that's how I've always looked at it. And I just mention that because when I go to workshops or whatever, or I listen to lectures, I'll talk to people and they'll be like, "Oh, here's this, this, and this," and I'm like, "Yeah, he didn't say that." "Oh, yeah, he said this." No, he literally did not say those words and did not infer or state any of those things. But yes, did not use those words. So again, I just can't reiterate the importance of listening for myself and for everyone as a human being. It's a really foundational skill that is never perfect. So anyways, thanks again for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.